In a sensational development today, the New South Wales Supreme Court ordered convicted murderer Gordon Wood be immediately released from jail. It's the latest twist in a case that's been running 16 years since the body of Wood's girlfriend, Caroline Byrne, was found at on the rocks of Sydney's notorious suicide spot, The Gap. Wood spent 3.5 years in jail for her murder, but the appeal judges unanimously agreed the prosecution had failed to rule out the real possibility that Caroline Byrne might have jumped. Deborah Cornwall reports.
Just spoken to Gordon, and obviously he's just overwhelmed after having spent 3 years in Goulburn jail.
So how are you feeling right now?
It's taken 2 coronial inquests, an international manhunt, a sensational murder trial and an extraordinary appeal in the Supreme Court. But after more than 16 years of being cast as the arch-villain in one of the longest-running murder inquiries in the country, the case against Gordon Wood collapsed today, and collapsed spectacularly.
I am not satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that Gordon Wood murdered Caroline Byrne.
Finally, after a long voyage of 15 years, he can now breathe the light of day, and he'll be happy to get home.
I don't think anybody can really appreciate what it would be like to be an innocent person and have your freedom taken away from you with no hope or very little hope of it being restored, and that hope has kept us going.
3 Supreme Court judges quash Wood's murder conviction outright, dismissing the Crown evidence as critically flawed, including a series of extraordinary experiments by their forensic expert, Associate Professor Rod Cross, who claimed Wood's girlfriend, Caroline Byrne, could not have jumped but must have been spear-thrown unconscious over the cliff.
If she was thrown in the manner the prosecution suggested, the thrower was taking a very substantial risk that he would also fall to his death.
Okay, so the legs lead, body stays behind.
It was 1995 when Caroline Byrne was found at the bottom of the Gap, Sydney's most notorious suicide spot. Police at first assumed it was suicide. But Wood's job as a chauffeur to the late celebrity stockbroker Rene Rivkin quickly fuelled suspicions of a much more sinister scenario, that Caroline Byrne had wanted to leave Wood, but she knew too much about Rivkin's secret business deals.
I am not satisfied that there was evidence at the trial to support either theory.
It was Wood's odd behaviour on the night of her death, including his claim that Caroline's spirit had guided him to the Gap to search for her, that proved most damning for Wood. And when he did attempt to clear his name in a paid television interview, he came off looking cocky and cold-blooded.
They're pretty cool. So do you think I did it?
I don't know.
The media fallout was so disastrous for Wood, he fled to England.
I think in many cases Wood has been his own worst enemy.
But Caroline's father, Tony Byrne, along with police, never gave up, convinced Wood was living large, playing the European playboy on Rene Rivkin's hush money.
These fantastical stories of wealth beyond imagination, the reality was, in most cases, the family was helping him stay afloat.
When Wood was finally charged a decade later, the prosecution's witness list read like a roll call of celebrity B-listers, starlets, power brokers, even deportment queens. Few had anything good to say about Wood, describing him variously as a control freak, a pommy wanker, possessive and creepy.
He's been painted as this villain, this despicable, unlikable person.
In the witness box, Tony Byrne broke down as he told the jury of how he'd tried to warn his daughter not to trust Wood, a man he believed was simply one of Rene Rivkin's fawning toy boys who'd do anything to please his boss, including sexual favours.
I think it's fair to say that the ghost of Rene Rivkin was present throughout the trial and probably still is.
I truly believe that this would not have got the legs it got if it didn't have all the ingredients for a great intrigue. It had the famous people, it had the high life, it had a beautiful model.
Caroline Byrne had in fact been diagnosed with depression only days before she died. And it wasn't the first time. She'd taken an overdose of pills 3 years earlier after her own mother committed suicide. But again, in the witness box, Tony Byrne remained adamant his daughter's overdose had only ever been a cry for help.
Tony Byrne's absolute conviction, or became a conviction, that she could not have committed suicide, just drove it. I find it very difficult to understand a father's thinking that he would find it more acceptable that somebody had viciously and murdered his daughter rather than accept that she killed herself because of depression.
The 3 judges today concluded that Wildwood's actions at the time of Byrne's death had been suspicious, even highly suspicious. That, in the end, was never enough to convict Wood for murder.
Caroline would have hated this. She would never have wanted Gordon to go through this. She loved him so much. I think if she had known this was going to happen, I don't think she would have jumped.